All right. Well, Joe, holler if you have anything to add. I'm going to start by talking about the Northeast Kansas Beekeepers Fun Day. And it's Saturday, June 3rd, and it'll be in Lawrence at the Douglas County Fairgrounds. We have Jamie Ellis coming as one of the speakers, and Judy Woo Smart and Autumn Smart. And then several of Judy's students will be coming and will be presenting. So if you haven't signed up, sign up now. It's $65 and you'll go to the Northeast Kansas website, nekba.org, and you can find all the information and sign up there. Next month for our value added, we're doing like home-based selling. So we have several people who people come to their house and buy honey there. We're trying to find someone that's doing a kind of an honor system thing, but we haven't come up with anyone. So if any of you do that, put it in the chat box so I can contact you. And then for July, we want to do like man's best friend, pet treats, horse treats. If anyone does anything for cats with honey. So far I was thinking last month someone said they did horse treats, but I didn't write their name down. So if you know anyone that does horse or cat treats, we got the dog treats covered and the paw wax covered, but we're really wanting someone to do other animals other than dogs. So anyway, Joe, what else have I missed? And unmute yourself.
I can't think of anything except the open apiary, but that's all I can think of.
Yeah, any of you who are in NECBA and you live up this way, we're doing an open apiary. We started with Great Plains Master Beekeepers funding from a grant they had, and we are starting an open apiary, and we've got 4 packages established, and we've been working through those, and you'll just have to watch the newsletter or Facebook for when we're meeting, but we're definitely trying to meet before the meeting every month. So anyway, all right. Our guest speaker tonight is Bridget Lee-Penafort, and Bridget got started with this because her Aunt Rose is a beekeeper and Bridget is an artist. So Rose had beeswax, and apparently she convinced Bridget that it would be a really good idea for her to do sculptures for our state fair art and beeswax category. And so that's how I think she got involved in this. So she's going to talk about some of her techniques. But I want to show something real quick that I should have dusted and gotten. So this is a sculpture made out of bronze. And there was, can you guys see it okay? And there was it is really dusty. I hope you can't see that. Anyway, we had a friend, we used to go to the American Beekeeping Federation meetings all the time. And she was an artist, but she was selling beeswax to a colony of artists in Colorado who sculptured the beeswax and then made bronzes out of it. And so, so Bridget, maybe that'll be your next project to talk to us about. But anyway, so she was selling beeswax to them and she thought, well, I'm an artist, I could do that. And so she made some really cool ones with beekeepers and stuff. So anyway, so Bridget, you are on. I'm going to mute myself. And my internet's been funky all week, so I might do my video off too. So anyway, welcome everybody. We have a nice sized group tonight.
Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. I am Bridget Lee, and I kept my maiden name, so it's just Lee. There's no Penafort.
Okay.
It's fine. My husband is Cantu Penafort, so it's a thing. He let me keep my name. So short and sweet. And you're talking about, that's called the lost wax sculpture process, which I have actually done. I have a fine arts degree from K-State. I have a dual bachelor's, so I've got a painting and a sculpture. So that's like a little bit about my background. And then I went back to school, and now I'm an elementary art teacher. I just love the littles because everything's so magical to them. So let me share my screen here. Maybe. Oops, sorry, let me move some things around because this is going to drive me nuts. Okay, sorry. Okay, so sculpting beeswax. I'm going to cover like three main topics tonight. So the different types of sculpture, sculpting tools, and this you might Google and find other various sculpting tools, or what I use might not necessarily work for you. So I try to cover a lot of different ones. And then tips and tricks to sculpting beeswax, and kind of like that's also kind of my process as well. So I just want to run through the different types of sculpture because there are several, and you probably know a lot of them. You just might not know the technical vocab or terms for them. So different types of sculpture are like the 6 different basic ways sculpture is created. You can carve it, model it, casting, assembling, relief, or freestanding. And the little sculpture Jolie had, that would be a freestanding sculpture, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. So carving, think of like the artists that carved the marble statues in Italy. Like, it's a subtractive process. You're carving away the material. So stone carving, wood carving, possibly wax. If you're taking, subtracting away, you're carving into it. Modeling, that's like if you're like hand building with clay or wax, or if you're doing plaster sculpture or paper mache, you are modeling. So you're adding material to your sculpture that you're creating. Okay. There's also casting. I noticed at the state fair, a lot of like molds and stuff are being used. Like, beautiful, do it, it's great. So casting is like a mold. It's used, and you pour the liquid form of whatever material you're using. So that could be beeswax, that could be molten bronze, iron, aluminum, so on. So resin, anything that fits into a mold. And the mold then harden, like when the material hardens, it forms that desired shape or form. Assembling, so you're gluing, nailing, welding, attaching various materials together. So that's like assembling. Okay. Relief. Relief sculpture, images are carved into like a flat surface. So for like beeswax, if you wanted to start out with like a brick or like a flat, surface of wax, and then carve like into it. So relief is not like, if you flip the relief to the side, all you're going to see is that side of the panel, or like the side of the wax. If you flip it to the back, it's just going to be a flat piece. So relief sculpture is really only viewed from the front, or slightly to the side, because you can kind of see a slight relief. So it's really only viewed like it. You can't view it all the way around, if that makes sense. And there's high relief, low relief, and then sunken relief, where it's really deep down in there. Freestanding, similar to what Jolie, the little sculpture she showed us, it's 3-dimensional, so you can see it. You got front, you got a side, you got the other side, you can see the back, the top. So it's viewed from all angles, and it usually sits on a base. Okay, so that's just like a brief overview of all the different types of sculpture. And when you're sculpting beeswax, I find that I use a lot of different types of sculpting in my process. So sculpting tools. I did not use a whole lot of like the metal or the stainless steel sculpting tools when I was doing my sculptures. I used a lot of like what I had, and what I had are clay tools because I was taking clay at the time, like ceramics at Washburn. But I found that I also used heat, and like if you put a wooden tool too close to the flame to warm it up, it might catch on fire. So the metal ones would probably be preferred, but there's just something nice about how thick the wooden tool handles are. And as long as you don't like, I don't know, like leave it in the flame, if you're just like warming your tool up, because wax does seem to manipulate better when it's slightly warmer. So if you're using a wooden tool, you can use wooden tools. That's the only thing I have to say about the wooden tools is just don't get them too close to the heat. So the metal clay tools seem to stand the heat a little bit better, and they're just nice for carving in or adding details, all of the little fun things. Clay ribbon sculpting tools. This is one of them and it only has one side. It used to be a dual side, but this is like my only ribbon tool left because I'm really hard on them. I use it a lot for like carving away at things. It's great for, modeling, carving, cutting, scraping, like the material away, because it only shaves a little bit at a time. So I can't like gouge too far in because where's my camera? Because it's really not that much. So, I mean, you can carve away about that much material at a time, and you can usually get some longer strokes. So when I'm doing sculptures and stuff, like what am I trying to say? It doesn't take a whole lot of the material away at once, but I do have a bigger one, and this one does tend to take a little bit more away. But like I said, it's just nice for like scrape or carving like longer ribbons of the material away from the sculpture. So the clay ribbon tools I like to recommend. Silicone mold release. I just like a good mold release because you never know when you're going to need to, like for the B-Man, and I'll show him here in a second. When I created his hat, I just took a bowl out of my kitchen cabinet, and I really wish I would have had mold release at that time because I would have just spritzed it in that bowl. And then when I put the wax in, I mean, that wax would just pop right out. So think of like Pam, but for like molds, it won't leave any like residue on your wax. It'll make it so much nicer to pop off things and stuff. Like if you are casting and using a mold, you need a good mold release. So that's why I have it on my tool list here. I've got more. These little torches here, and I don't even know if there's anything left in these. Rosie turned me on to these, or Aunt Rose turned me on to these. So I still have a couple of her little things. Are probably empty, but I don't know if she got them at like the gas station or whatever. I have an Amazon link later, but I mean, they're just great. Like you just press the button and they come on. Great for heating up. Like if you do have the little metal tools, where's my camera at? The little metal tools, like it's great just to like heat them up real quick, and then you can carve away a little bit easier or smooth out an area. Or when you're finally finished with your wax, like smoothing out, like hitting your wax just a little bit with it. It's great. Another thing I don't think I could live without sculpting wise is this is technically a little wood burner tool. You can also get ones, I think there's ones for like plastic. I don't know, at K-State, the handles we had were like orange. And I think that's the Amazon link I put in my tool page. So these little things, it's used for like attaching pieces together, just like touching the wax and like welding. So think of like a little soldering or welding tool. heating pad. Rose introduced me to this idea. I didn't think about this one, but she got like, she had a heating pad and then she'd lay like a piece of glass on it. So like it would warm it up and it would warm the wax, like the wax would sit on top of the glass and it'd warm it enough to like make it very easily to manipulate. So that's, especially with like thinner sheets of wax, it was really nice. I use my pancake griddle. So that's very good for like low temp wise, leveling out a sculpture. So if I made something, but it's leaning and I want to straighten it out, I would just set the base on there on a certain side until it's even. You could also, if you have it on a lower temp, make sheets of wax, or I think on the B-Man, I made his veil using my griddle. I mean, I then used my griddle, like I cleaned it and I also used it for food. So I feel like beeswax is pretty food safe. Like I'm still here. So you could probably get one specifically for sculpture. And if you're using anything other than beeswax, I'd probably recommend having a separate one than what you eat with. Okay. And I do have a list and like a little QR code that you can scan to get I just put them on Amazon, like an Amazon wish list of sculpting tools. If you're curious, I just put some recommendations on there. Okay. Any questions so far? I guess I probably should have done tools after I showed you the sculpting thing, but maybe not.
No. I've heard that people use beeswax on their skillets for cleaning and treating them, so it should work on your griddle.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it's food safe. Like, I mean, we eat the honey and they have the, what do you call it? I don't even know what I'm thinking of right now. But if you're using different types of wax, I would probably, like anything other than beeswax, I would probably get a separate griddle. Just I don't want anybody to, if you're comfortable. Okay. So tips and tricks. I believe the Kansas State Fair guidelines, it's like, it must be like 100% wax, no wires, glue, etc. Like no armature in the middle to help hold it up. Like it has to be 100% beeswax. And I think it's not more than 2 pounds. Is that correct? It's been a while. I don't even remember the last time. Was it 2018?
I think it's a minimum of 2 pounds. It has to at least be 2 pounds.
Okay, then I have that wrong. So minimum of 2 pounds, because I was like, I feel like some of my sculptures were bigger than that. But so we usually start out with Aunt Rose cleans the wax. Please do not ask me my process for cleaning wax. I have no idea. She does the dirty work, and then I get the nice clean stuff, and that's what I get to work with. Bless her heart, because she's amazing. So please don't ask me. Please inquire to someone else who has done it at least one time before, because I have not. I probably should ask Aunt Rose to show me. So I start out with at least 2 pounds and then a little extra, because you'll need some extra. Okay. So I'm just going to walk us through. This is just for like a bust. And I've kind of combined my queen bee with the, what do we call him? B-Man. So I start with an idea, and I was taking a photo class at the time, and my sister sat for a portrait for me. And so I turned her into my queen bee, this is my younger sister, Kimberly, or her likeness. Her eyebrows are a bit thicker in the sculpture than they are in reality. So I just start with a hunk of wax. I sketch out my idea beforehand. So I had just a transparency that I was sketching on, or a piece of paper. And then I just transferred that idea onto my wax. And I don't know, this might be a little hard to see with this lighting. I didn't take very good process photos at the time, but I just roughly sketched in. So it's like the basic outline of like her head shape. I didn't even worry about her hair. She's bald, much like the B-Man here, until I added hair in. So I do her face, and I get her nose, and like just basic rough sketch. And then I'll go to the side, like I'll turn the wax to the side and do kind of her profile a little bit. And then I just start hacking away, carving away. Oh, another great tool. I don't know if I put that on there. This one's more of a flexible one. My really stiff one is at school right now because I got a lot of glue to scrape off tables before the end of the year. These are great because they can also withstand the heat. And that first little bit there, carving away at it, like these are great. Heat the metal part up, it just cuts just like butter. So you're just roughing out the front, like the shape at first, and then you can, like once you get the rough shape, then you can go in and start refining. So the little bee man here, you can start seeing like his nose taking shape and his mouth area and like the eye sockets. And again, I don't even worry about hair yet. Like I just try to get the basic shape of the head. And then I go back and I start. So it's a very subtractive process at first. I am definitely using the carving technique, but then I switched to some modeling because then I start adding in, like maybe I took too much off the nose or I just need to get it slightly correct. Another tool I don't think I put on there, but I put on my Amazon list is like a little wax melter. So I had just like, you know, those little, they're like a little flat thing and you can set a candle, like a, you know, glass container with a candle on it and the candle melters or the wax melters. So I just used that little plate in my little apartment when I was sculpting these things and heated up just a little bit of wax because it's not too hot that it like hurts the wax, and it just kind of left it like if you put enough wax in it, some of it's a little bit solid, some of it's a little bit like goopy, and that's just great. You can scoop it right out of there and put it on your sculpture to add back in. So that's how her hair, like I literally took this tool and I scooped in that little candle, that candle warmer container, and I just started like trialing it on, just like we're plastering a wall, I guess. I don't know, like just putting it on her hair. So a candle warmer. I think I also have that on my Amazon list. And the one I have on my Amazon list, you can control the temperature. Mine didn't. It just had one setting. So it starts out as a carving sculpture technique, and then I go to a modeling one. And always check back in with your original idea. Here I try to include a picture, like there was my original drawing. Here's the original photo I was working from. You just kind of always want to check back in to make sure your proportions or your idea is still being, or like if you're more than welcome to change your idea between the beginning and the middle, but I would just always like to check back in, reference. Oh, there's my little candle. That was my little candle melter in this. Refer back to your reference idea picture here. So I just set a little container on that and then put a little wax in there and melt it while I was working, and then I could just take it out. Attaching pieces, because sometimes you just have to attach pieces together, like this little bee here and his leg or his wings. That's where your little wood burning tool comes in. Because it gets real hot, so you don't even touch your wax long, or otherwise you'll scorch your wax. So it literally, you have to be the fastest ever. So you're like, and then stick, because yeah, you just don't, if you hold it on there forever, it turns like it scorches your wax, and you don't want to do that. So you just have to be careful not to burn it too bad with this little thing. And normally these come with different tips. I haven't used it in a while. I'm not quite sure where all my tips are. I'm sure they're downstairs in my sculpture stuff somewhere. But so the wood burning tool, you just have to be careful. Mine is not a temperature like where you can regulate or anything. So you just have to be careful. But that's how I kind of weld pieces together. And then once you get your sculpture to a point, like once I'm done carving and adding back into it, that's when I take the little torch and I hold my sculpture, far enough away, because again, this will also scorch your wax or burn your wax. So if you hold it but it just like smooths out all the rough edges. So she looks much smoother right here than she did back here in this photo. Like this is real rough, right? So she just looks much smoother here when I took the wax, and it just kind of helps smooth things out and refines things. And then thinking outside the box, Aunt Rose just she gave me some of this. and I don't know what it is called. You all could help me out with that probably, where they build the wax out here. And she just like cut it off the frames, and she had it in a little, wrapped it up in some tissue paper, and also gave it to me with the clean wax. And so that's what I turned into her crown, and like some of her clothing here, like I cut it very gingerly in half, and just like scorched it and glued it on. So like just using some of the natural, like beautiful things that the bees already make, like, because they're little artists here making all of this wax goodness. So just using what they give you too, like that's really cool, I think. As for tips and tricks about cleanliness, because I think someone mentioned cleanliness, as you can see in my what do you call it, my little score sheet here, I got a 22 on cleanliness. So I try. The best advice I can give you is keep your area clean, like designate a spot when you're sculpting, like clean it beforehand, designate a spot specifically for that, so you're not moving it all around your house or something, and or your shop or your studio, wherever you're working, kitchen table. That's where I did a lot of my work. But just like cleaning the area beforehand, keeping all the things, tools, everything there. Possibly covering, just make sure you're not covering anything that's hot or melted, or like don't cover anything that's gonna like catch on fire or stick or anything. But like possibly like when things are cool, maybe throwing a sheet of plastic or something over it. So dust and debris, and I have 2 dogs now, so I'm sure mine would have, if I carved wax right now, I'd get dog hair in it. Like everything in my life right now has dog hair in it. So that's the best advice I can give you on that. Other than that, that probably goes back to also cleaning your wax before you sculpt with it. Again, that's not my forte. That's not my area of expertise. Aunt Rose might have some tips and tricks, or anyone else in this meeting that has done it before. So sorry, I can't be too much help there. What else here? Building with sheets of wax. So you don't have to like carve away at things. You could do sheets of wax. This is the little smoker that Aunt Rose started, and I just kind of helped finish like welding a few things together. Oop, go back. And so I use the torch and stuff to kind of like hit things and get them hot enough that you can then stick them together. Like you don't want your wax like dripping hot, but just like hit it enough to like get it just a little bit like melty. I'm sorry this is not a live demo, because like it's hard to explain without like showing, but just enough. And you might have to play around with that, because if you get it too hot, you could burn a hole through things or take off more than you intended. So just like doing that and like sticking it on there real quick. But you can build with sheets of wax. And this picture up here in the corner is the heating pads under this white towel, and then she had just a little piece of glass that we were then taking the thin sheets of glass, and I think we were cutting bee wings or legs or something on this up here. So this just warms the glass enough to keep your wax a little bit more manipulative, or so it's more easy to manipulate. But you can construct with sheets of wax. So you just cut, like if you're doing something like that, you could just cut your sheets and then like weld them together with either I'd probably use the little wood tool to do that.
So did you do this whole thing with sheets of wax?
That'd be a great question for Aunt Rose. I think she did. Like I said, she just has pictures of me helping her finish. Like she got everything to a certain point, and I think she just needed help like sticking it together, because this was not my creation. I just helped her kind of stick it together. She just happened to get me in there.
That's really cool.
It is very cool. So that was all her original idea. I did not do that. So but I'm pretty sure, I think the can is hollow. I'm pretty sure it is. If she chimes in and corrects me, that'd be okay too. Because that's just a sheet. I think the cone I think everything is just made out of a sheet, and that's just a really thin. Parchment paper could also be your friend if you don't have any nonstick pans or silicone mold release or anything. So yeah, sheets of wax, and you weld it together. And these are just kind of sculptures throughout the ages. I did not include everything because Rosie has also, like, some of these are Rosie's, but this is kind of like the evolution of kind of like hers and mine. I think there was a dandelion in there somewhere, and there might be another one in between up here. So like it started out like flowers and bees, and like these petals were all done with like melted wax, and then we kind of like, once it got to a certain point where it was still kind of like you could still manipulate it with your hands, it was cool enough to touch, but warm enough to still manipulate, and we just kind of formed leaves, and it, like the little bees wings were like really thin sheets of wax, to like this little, like a very up close kind of like a macro shot of the bee on the center of a flower, and the little pollen things were little sheets, and we just cut things and rolled things and then welded them on with a little tool. And she used various, like, this is all beeswax, but it's like the various colors of beeswax in her bee that she did up there. And I know that the wings were made on the, like, she took thin sheets and did the heating pad and the glass idea. My thin sheets, that's where the pancake griddle came in. Like, I just turned it real low and I kind of poured some wax on there. And when it, like, it would kind of cool on the surface, and then I would just like peel it up with my, I have a bigger spatula. Again, it's at school, but I've got a wider one, maybe about 3-inch one. And I just like scraped it off my pancake griddle, and then like there, like, you had to be so careful to like weld it onto his hat with a wood burner tool. So that's how I got the really thin sheets. And that's where I think the cleanliness on this one was knocked too, because I feel like there was some little bits of debris. So make sure you clean your griddle really good if you do use it beforehand. That was probably like little, or I could have scratched the bottom of the griddle too with my spatula sometimes. That could have happened too. So the Honey Queen, this is Rose's, but I threw it in here because it's the sheets, which I thought was really cool. This is just a more up close. This is the frontal. I like this picture better on the angle, but this is the frontal one here. A little bee guy. And I think this was a recent, the most recent one. Took the likeness of my dog Jojo, and my favorite flower is the sunflower, and did a little bee on her nose. I don't have any better pictures of that. I don't know why I don't have any better pictures of that, but that's what it is. So that's just kind of, those are my processes. There are so many other ways to do it. Everyone has their own way or finds their own way. There are artists that do like wax sculpture, and I meant to add a slide for that, and I just kind of ran out of time. I didn't take the topic number 2 out of here. Here's a sculpting tool list. If you want to scan the QR code, it will take you to like a wish list on Amazon, or a list on Amazon with like these things on it. That's, I don't know, I find it helpful if I can like have the list and look if you're interested in that. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I was gonna say, I have my favorite little wooden tools. Like, they're very well loved. Like, this used to be twice the size, like a little knife looking thing, but throughout time it's got scorched, and I've had to, like, I don't know, it's just very well loved. Sometimes I use palette knives because that's what I had, and like this one was my favorite for like smoothing wax on, like if I was warming wax up and smoothing it on. Wood carving tools, I didn't have those on because I just thought of it, but I use wood carving tools, especially in the hair, to get like the line work and stuff. Yeah. I think that's about all I've got. I think I'm ready for, if anybody's got any questions, that's where I'm at in my thing, or if anyone wants a better explanation, maybe.
If anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, or you can put it in the chat box, either way.
I gotta figure out how to stop sharing. I don't have any of the sculptures here. Aunt Rose keeps all of the sculptures safe. So I don't have any of the tools or any of the things. Well, I have the tools. I just don't have the sculptures.
Did you ever do any beeswax while you were in school, or is this something you picked up afterwards?
So she, Jolie, when she was showing you that sculpture, is telling you that the beeswax, we didn't use beeswax. We used a special sculpting wax. It was purple. I was like 20 something at the time, and I didn't really pay attention to exactly what kind of wax it was. It was very, very sticky. Like, you think beeswax is sticky, but this is like, it almost leaves like a residue. It was just, I don't know. It was not as much fun working with it as it is the beeswax. So no, I didn't think about sculpting beeswax until Aunt Rose was like, hey, Kansas State Fair, you should do this. And I was like, okay. She's like, I'll supply the beeswax. And I was like, okay. But no, when I did wax sculpture, I would then make a mold, melt the wax out in the kiln, and then it's like the lost wax technique. So then you're left with the hollow mold. You'd flip it over and you'd pour iron, bronze, aluminum, or those types of things into it. So I've done that. But as far as beeswax in college, no. Do I sell them? There was a question in chat. I do not. I've never sold anything. Like I said, Aunt Rose has got all the sculptures at her house in Atchison. Would I be opposed to selling? Absolutely not. But I don't have the bees. I don't have the beeswax. Not that I couldn't get my hands on beeswax, but. Okay, another question. What recommendations do you have for a beginner? Books, trial error, classes? For beeswax sculpture or just sculpture in general, I'm sure there's, like, my go-to is YouTube. When I don't know how to do something, I want to learn how to do something, I YouTube it. We didn't have a book in Sculpture 1 or in Sculpture at all at K-State. Our professor demoed, and then, okay, I do, you do. So I learned better hands-on. So I would recommend maybe starting Googling first, YouTube. I'm sure there's tons of recommendations on
Pinterest.
different types of books. And it might not be wax sculpture, but you could definitely look up like sculpture in general, like carving or modeling, sculpture, additive, subtractive methods of sculpture. You could practice on a bar of soap. I mean, I haven't had my kids do that in school yet, but it's same kind of idea. You could get some tools, get a bar of soap and like carve, because you're not out too much money. If you mess up your soap, you can keep the shavings and smush it back together. Wash your hands.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe trial and error, some books, some YouTube. Any other questions?
I mean, I have never seen anyone present anything like this, and I've never seen it anywhere except our state fair, like at any of the big honey shows in the United States. I never see anyone. Well, that's not true. At ABF, that lady from Wisconsin used to. She's still passed, but man, she did some neat beeswax sculptures too. But otherwise, one lady did a banana, and she, you can only use the natural banana. And so she'd laid her beeswax out to bleach in the sun. And so her beeswax was like 3 different colors. Like the banana was a color, she did the peel, the outside of the peel was bright yellow, the inside was kind of a different yellow. And the judges. I mean, everyone gave her so much trouble because they did not believe it was beeswax, but she'd like worked so hard on it. It was crazy. I don't know if you remember that, Robert, but oh, that was nuts. So I guess I have seen some, but
Yeah.
did Rose, one of yours went to the national meeting, didn't it, or no?
She's still on. Where's she?
Yeah, she's on, but she
She's
doesn't know
on.
how
She
to.
never-
Oh, I see her. Okay.
So I can't remember. I was thinking she sent one to one of the national
Yeah,
meetings. Anyway.
I think.
Hmm.
Was it Houston or
I
Baton
feel like she
Rouge?
went to Texas at one time for something like that. But I can't remember which, like if she took a sculpture, I can't remember
Mhm.
what. But yeah. Yeah, I had never heard of it until Aunt Rose suggested it. So that's really cool that Kansas State Fair, like they all do that. It's very neat.
Well, we
And I
used
have
to
purple-
just buy different cake molds and
Yeah.
use them till you up the ante on what we should be doing. So
Oh, and there's nothing wrong with a good mold too. So if you're just starting out too, that might also be a good place to start, is like a cake mold or something you have in the and like try pouring things. Because that's still, there's still an art, like there's an art in everything. So I just have to, I love hand building, like that's a passion. So like my professor was it, like he was the mold master. I don't know, and I just love hand building. So everyone has to each their own. So I'm not knocking molds by any means. Please, like if that's a good place to start, I mean I think it would be like getting your hands, what do you call it? Getting your hands dirty with the wax sculpture. Like you could probably start with a mold. That's probably a good place to start, because that way you can kind of see how the wax melts and how long it takes to harden and like what it feels like, so it's also a very good place to start, and how not to get the dent in it. I don't know what you call that,
oh, the
dip.
because don't you have to cool it at a certain, see, all that's not
Uh-huh.
my cup of tea.
Yeah, you have to keep it warm as it
Uh-huh.
cools, so it cools slowly.
Yeah, so that's an art in itself. Mine always has a dent. So yeah, well, that's it.
Well, really cool. Any other questions, anyone? So, well, this was great. This was up the ante for us. We'll have to have some sculptures at our state fair this year. So
Yeah, September,
or
right?
other states, because there's people on here from Nebraska, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Oh yeah.
We have a lot of people from other places. So.
Hey, Jolie, where would one go to find out the requirements for entering at the fair in Hutchinson? You mentioned the weight of the wax and so forth.
It's all online, and you just go to Kansas State Fair, and it's not the rule book, but the gosh, I can't think what it's called. It's the exhibitor's handbook. It's the exhibitor's handbook, and honey is listed under agriculture, and the beeswax is with the honey, listed with the honey exhibit. So, and it says like if you're doing candles, how many candles you have to have. They have to be the same color, the same size, and actually gives you guidelines of like she said, cleanliness of wax. It says what color your wax has to be and all that. So, and that's true of all states. I'm sure they've all gone to online. So, yeah. Great. Yeah, people from Missouri. So, all over. A lot of nice presentations. Good job, Bridget. Any other questions? All right.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me present tonight.
Oh
I will-
my gosh, thank you. This was
Great
really,
PowerPoint.
Oh,
really good.
Canva, I love it. My plug. Okay, I'll get off my.
Well, thank you. Anything else anyone wants to bring up? I want to just remind everyone about the fun day. We have live bees there. We have all kinds of workshops. Love to have you join us. It's Saturday, June 3rd. Lots of good food, homemade ice cream with honey in it, all kinds of goodies. Anyway. All right, I think that's it. If anyone else has anything for the good of the order. All right. Good.
Oh,
Thanks,
Jolie,
Bridget. Thanks, Rose, for getting her involved in this. Yes. Yes, Joe.
I was going to say, remind everybody that there'll be vendors present at Fun Day too. If someone, Jordy's Honey, Daydaunt, Jim Rader from Iowa with Daydaunt, and Elam's Lavender will be there selling lavender plants, and Charlotte Wiggins. You know what about Charlotte, Jolie? Can you tell them what she will have?
Charlotte's from Rolla, Missouri, and she has actually written several books, and she'll be there with her books. One of her books is on getting bee clubs started, and it's an excellent book. So if you live in an area that doesn't have a bee club, or you have a bee club that's struggling, that book. But she's written 2 beginners books that are really very, very, very good. So, oh, Stephanie's asked, Robert, can you answer that? Will we be posting the last few months' presentations on our website?
Yes, we will. John should have them up by this weekend. He's a little behind, but I keep putting a bug in his ear. And he's got a list I printed out earlier today.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rose, for having such a great niece. All right. Well, we'll see you all next month, and we'll be talking about some different ways to sell our honey products. So thanks, everyone.